You're listening to The Future Jam. I'm Mike, and this is Episode 9, The Hyperloop. Joining me today is Andrew, last name redacted. This more compact conversation was pulled from an earlier recording, and we thought it deserved its own episode. Thanks to Blessing Jr. for providing this week's music. You can find his channel on YouTube. So this is coming from Popular Science. This is from an issue dated from August 1968, page 66. Trains without wheels. They glide on air. Hover trains, or they would call them aerotrain, is a full-fledged air cushion railway taking shape in France. On its 70-mile elevated track from Paris to Orleans, wheelless 80-passenger cars will cruise at 155 miles per hour. Tests to begin with completion of the line's first 12 miles by 1969. The article goes on to talk about riding the current test track, and they explain it this way. A half-scale 4.2-mile track 20 miles outside of Paris. It used blowers to pump air into chambers along the car's bottom, the train's bottom,
right,
which exhausted the air downward against the wide, flat base of the rail. So, flexible rubber lips around the chamber's edges prevent the air's escape until a film of air supports the 5,500-pound weight of the car. This is a small scale. It's
right.
Not full scale, so it's pretty light. No other suspension is needed, so it's much like a hovercraft. The air pushes against the side of the tracks to prevent derailment.
Okay.
And the test aerotrain, it reached 125 miles per hour. That's the one that was small to scale.
Okay.
With its air propeller drive. So it had like a prop engine on the back of it that would propel it. And for a speedier, so they actually added booster rockets and a Aerojet engine for a speedier boost. And they said that actually propelled it up to 233 miles per hour. But, this never quite panned out, really.
Right.
It really didn't. Because at the time this was being made, another company started developing the bullet train. Those high-speed trains you see in Japan and France. What other countries have those?
A lot of Europe.
Europe.
I know, like China actually, I think has them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, a lot of the other industrialized nations have. We're one of the only industrialized nations that don't have.
They don't have a high-speed rails.
Yeah.
And I guess those are cheaper, and they're using technology that almost already existed, anyways.
Yeah,
and
I think that was part of it too. Was that the bullet train is a little bit faster than the air train was.
Yes.
And it was more understood, because they're still using rails. So it was more understood.
It's a concept that's more understood.
And it probably didn't take as much of an infrastructure, complete overhaul, as much as it would have done for the air train.
I know. It sounds like a cool concept, though. You're floating on air. There's no friction on the ground.
I saw the picture of it. I mean, it looked interesting.
It's a really interesting concept, and it kind of died out before it was ever really utilized. They never really built, and I know it talked about how they were going to build a longer track, like a 12-mile long track. That I don't think that ever got fully completed. From what I could tell, they never fully built any of these. It stayed smaller scale, and they might have built one or two bigger test tracks, but it just never panned out. From Wikipedia, it said in October of 1975, Rohr Industries UTACV prototype is mothballed after funding for the program runs out. And then on December 21st, 1975, Jean Burton, which was the founder of this company in France, and he kind of was one of the fathers of developing the hover design for vehicles, the air hover design. He died.
So wait, did hovercrafts not exist until the 70s?
No,
But did he design the hovercraft?
Yeah, he was one of the fathers. He was one of the fathers of the hovercraft.
Okay.
And then On July 17th, 1991, a fire destroys the Aerotrain S-44 in its hangar in Gomitz. So one of the test vehicles was destroyed just by a fire.
I'm surprised it lasted that long, honestly.
It was sitting in the warehouse, probably.
Yeah, okay, that makes
so.
sense.
And then on March 22nd, 1992, a fire destroys the Aerotrain I-80 HV and the hangar in Chevilly. After cleanup operations, only the platforms left. So they got passed up by the bullet train. So it was a neat idea, but it just never saw the light of day, and they were never able to kind of get the concept hammered out to make it work and make it actually feasible. Yeah, feasible. But that kind of brings us into the topic of the show, and this is a new style of train, completely new. I don't know how long this concept has been around. There's the concept of maglev. What's maglev, Andrew?
Maglev is just, there's just like a magnetic system running along the bottom of the track. So instead of rails, you just have magnets. And it basically pushes up against the bottom of the car.
To lift it.
And that can be actually used to propel and slow down the train. They can control the power of the magnetic field. So they can use that to actually brake the train, speed it up, push against it, propel it, basically.
But what was the drawbacks of that? It seems very expensive. It seems like it would be a very costly thing to like put all these rich metals into the track.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's gotten cheaper over time. The main drawback was it wasn't too much faster than
the existing technology,
like bullet trains.
Yeah,
because you have wind resistance against the train. So I mean, if you can go, a few hundred miles an hour, so you can go a tiny bit faster than a bullet train, but like after you go so fast, you can actually like just derail. Like even though it's on a magnet, like you can still derail or you can like break down.
That wind resistance can actually knock the train off the tracks.
Right.
It's just dangerous to go past a certain miles per hour. Which is why
trains now can only go so fast.
And so that's exactly why we brought this idea in, and the idea is this: Hyperloop. Is the Hyperloop the future of travel? And that's just kind of like a wide encompassing question. But recently on TheVerge.com, one of the big proponents of the Hyperloop technology, Hyperloop One, they're a company based out of California, I believe, and recently they made two announcements in Washington, D.C. One is that its test track in the Nevada desert is finally complete and ready to host the first full system test in the next few months. And the other is that Hyperloop One is eyeing less than a dozen regions in the United States as possible future locations for its ultra-fast, futuristic transportation system. And that system, they said, has speeds ranging around 760 miles per hour.
I mean, that's ideal. I mean, I doubt they would get it to be going that fast on a regular basis.
Maybe on a straight shot.
Yeah, and maybe. I mean, I would think they would save that for cargo.
But we haven't explained what the Hyperloop is. So we said that it has possible speed is 760 miles per hour, right?
Right.
And currently, aircraft passenger jets, those range in the speeds of 546 to around 575 miles per hour. So it's actually quicker than a jet.
Yeah.
In a way. Theoretically. So how does the Hyperloop work, and what is it? That's the question, really. And what's a good way to explain it, Andrew?
I don't know if I'm going to explain this greatly, but basically Hyperloop takes maglev technology. So you propel the train by the maglev, but like we said, there's wind resistance a lot more. So once you go so fast, you can go off the rail. So what Hyperloop does is it encloses the car, so you're inside a tunnel. It's an enclosed tunnel.
So I would think about it this way. You know how when you go to the bank and you go to the teller,
exactly, it's exactly like that.
You go to the teller and you hit the button. They shoot the cylinder to you that you put your check in, and you shoot it back. It's through the air.
Yes,
it's super fast. There's no wind resistance because it's a a vacuum. There's nothing to slow it down.
Yeah, that's basically the how that works. Plus, there's a magnet on the, except it's horizontal instead.
So what's propelling the craft through the tube is magnets on the actual in the actual tube itself to kind of power it and push it.
Right.
And the reason why it doesn't hit the bottom of the tube or the top of the tube is, you played air hockey, right?
Right.
When you're playing air hockey, the puck moves around. It kind of floats over the table because of the air underneath it,
right?
Kind of like a padding of air. Mm-hmm. And that same concept is what's going to kind of surround the entire pod as it travels through the tunnel.
Right. So what they want to do is you're going to be surrounded by padding of air, so it keeps it stable, keeps from hitting any of the sides. And then while it's flying down the tube, going 700 miles an hour, there's actually a fan pump or something on the front of the car, and it pushes the wind the air that you're meeting in the front back behind the car, so that it's not getting the wind resistance that you would normally get.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't know if I explained that in the most technical way. But.
No, as it's traveling through the tube, the air will build up in front of it, and they need a way to transport the air from the front of the car to the back. So they use like an air pump a vacuum pump to push the air behind the car. So there's a lot of small little intricate things that needs to happen, and when you're moving at that high speed and there's no air in the tunnel itself, it can pose some problems, but we'll go into those in a few. So potentially, Hyperloop 1 wants to start cargo by 2020 and people by 2021. So that's fairly close. We're in 2017 right now.
3 years away.
3 years away. I don't think they're going to reach that.
I don't think they're going to reach.
That's pie in the sky, I think.
Even if they get like stuff approved, I just don't think they're going to get a track built that quickly from the distance that they want. Like, I don't think they're going to get an LA. What was it? LA to San Francisco? Was that what they wanted?
Initially LA to San Francisco. Yes.
I don't think they're going to get a track that long built, because how long is their test track right now? Like 4 miles? Or was that that was the other train?
Currently, they didn't say.
No. Well, I know their tracks of a few miles, I think, and that's taken them a year or more from when they first announced Hyperloop. So I'd imagine building a longer one, an actual tunnel and stuff from LA to San Fran would probably be.
So it's in the works, but obviously it's going to depend on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little kinks they have to work out as well. And some of the obvious ones are more like land rights. They'll have to take land from people, obviously, to build these.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious how much they'll take, because I'm wondering if they'll do it like some oil companies. They take land, but they build the pipeline up up higher.
Raised. They're raising.
So it's raised up. So I mean, especially if they want it to remain. They said it has to remain even, the ground has to remain even. So they would be building it up where it would stay like a flat plane.
Yeah, that's another one of the hurdles is it has to be semi-even all the way across, because it can't have any quick changes in direction. For many reasons. One of them is the human body can't withstand those types of G-forces at that speed. So just quick turns and elevation changes, like going up and down alone, will just make you sick. And who would want to ride in that as a passenger?
I would love that. It'd be my favorite ride.
It'd be like a ride. It'd be like a amusement ride. Maybe they could have extreme travel.
Hyperloop.
Extreme travel. Hop in here and pay us a lot of money just to get a quick adrenaline rush.
Just to get sick.
Just to get sick. Okay, so yeah, the land rights thing, and
I think land. I don't think that'll be that big of an issue overall, because especially if you have like LA to San Fran, they're both in California, so the state's dealing with it. Now, if you're doing interstate, that might be more difficult. If one state doesn't want to invest in it and one state does, then you might have an issue. You might have to get federal funding. I'm not sure how that would work, but the interstate highway system was built at a time when we had much more, I guess, national cooperation.
Yes. There's the old saying that they couldn't have built the national highway system nowadays just because of all the red tape and bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So anything like this, there's lots of companies that obviously don't want this to happen. So the airline industries don't want this to happen.
I mean, you're talking. I mean, economically, you'd be talking about a major impact if this rolled out full scale. Because I mean, think about how much cargo, like just here in our airport in Cincinnati. I mean, DHL. I mean, and they have their ports here. One of their ports are here. Their airports. And
Amazon's opened up a massive base here, so they're going to be shipping everything out of Cincinnati.
Well, Amazon doesn't have like a set like transportation mode yet. Like they haven't like completely invested into air or like trucks.
Well, they've contracted out tons of planes out of Cincinnati Airport.
Yeah, but for how long? Like I mean, I'm sure the contract
obviously until they decided it's not working out for them.
So I mean, so their company was the beginning of their company. The base of their company isn't built on shipping. That came later. So even if like a new shipping mode came, they would just invest in that. Whereas like DHL would take a huge hit from like getting rid of air shipping.
So yeah, it has potential to kill out a lot of air travel, regular train travel, bus travel, all those different modes. It has potential to kind of be the new thing. As potential. And obviously it's because of the speed. It's faster than a plane. It's faster than any other mode of transportation. But the limitations is what's going to be the problems right here.
Yeah. You definitely, I mean, it's like I said, you can only go you can go straight, fairly even.
So it has to slow down when it goes around. Like if it has to turn or like change elevations, it's obviously not going to be able to go at its full speed. It's going to slow down.
Even so, it's still faster than other modes of transportation would be.
That's true, and it's technically safer.
Yeah.
It's controlled environment for the most part, so it's technically safer than most other forms of travel, but it's not. It doesn't have a track record yet.
Right. So we'll no pun intended.
No, I was waiting for you to say that actually.
Yeah, I mean, like that once that test track opens up and they start testing on it, we'll see. They'll, I think 2020 is way too optimistic for them. I think there's going to be kinks like there is in every new technology, and they'll have to work, and there probably will be some mess ups. There'll be some accidents. They'll figure out some stuff that's wrong with it, and they'll have to go back to the drawing board and work on some stuff.
There's all sorts of little things. Like it's a pressurized tube, and there's only going to be exits at where the stops are. So they're going to have to figure out what happens if the train stops in the middle of a pressurized tube. Yeah. How are they going to evacuate the people out?
Yeah,
that's a huge problem. What if it just breaks down? They're going to have to cut the tube open just to get the people out.
Yeah.
Or if there's a fire in the tube or like a terrorist attack, it's going so fast. Anything at all happens to that tube, it's going to be a massive disaster, a massive problem. But obviously,
I'm sure they've planned for stuff like that.
Well, let's hope so.
I mean, I think anytime you talk about building especially if you do it nationwide, mass transportation system like that, terrorism is the first thing that comes to somebody's mind.
Always.
It's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm always thinking like, oh, oil lines leak. And those are like pipes crossing the nation. If we have a tube for transportation, or like the subway bombings that we've had in the last, back in the early 2000s after 9/11, what keeps that from happening in the Hyperloop other than...
Yeah, but terrorism is going to be a problem no matter what mode of travel. So
no, that's what I'm saying. That shouldn't slow it down. That's not a thing that I'm worried about.
We shouldn't let little things like that hold us back.
My point was, if it's coming to my mind, like the first thing I think about, I'm sure it's come to their people.
Oh yeah, they're definitely worried about that. And then there's tons of upkeep and maintenance. If they let one of these tubes just slowly wear away, it's just going to be a huge catastrophe as well. So it's going to be expensive to. But they have to maintain everything. They have to maintain the railroad system.
Right.
In my book, that's a small qualm because everything needs maintenance. So I don't really see that as a big problem.
As long as they take better care of it than they do the interstate.
Yeah, as long as they take better care of it than the interstate, then we're good to go. And I think they will maintain it because it's going to be kind of like the golden child. It's going to be kind of like, this is what we built. This is amazing. Come to America, see see our massive Hyperloop system. And obviously, it's probably not going to even be built here first. I bet you another country is going to snag it up.
I saw that that's one of the other, not Hyperloop one of the other companies was looking around at different international clients, and the UAE was in there. I was like, there's no way that Dubai isn't going to try to have like
this first.
Yeah, because they're supposedly the wealthiest place on the entire world.
While we're fighting over should we build it here or there, there's going to be every country in the world is going to have one before us.
Luck. We're building it here. Get over it.
Yeah.
And they just go on with it.
Exactly.
Call it skyscraper. We can do that right now. Then they build it within a year, and it's.
Yeah, there's significant problems here in this country. Significant problems as far as infrastructure goes. But the big we talked about the big ones, motion sickness, all that stuff. So this has a possibility to replace over the land. Like transporting,
right?
So intercontinental transportation. So
see, that's the thing where I'm not sure how. I think that's a long way off. I mean, even if they get Hyperloop up running here or whatever country they build it in, I think crossing water is going to be a huge.
They've been talking about this actually. They've been wanting to build like one of these tunnels under the ocean, suspended by flotation.
Sorry, flotation though.
So buoys that like make it sit at a certain level in the sea, so it's not floating on the surface; it's below the surface. And these air buoys inflate and deflate to make sure that the track stays at this at a depth, a certain depth.
I was gonna say, wouldn't the buoys like move with the ocean? Like if a wave goes by and it like moves it a little bit.
That's why I'd have to have some sort of precise inflation, deflation to adjust to the currents and to adjust to the rise and fall of the ocean. So,
okay.
That's a pipe dream. That's just like where it could go.
Is it a pipe dream?
Andrew's finding all my puns. But yeah, that's where it could go eventually if this actually gets off the ground. Is we could get into the tube and be in England or China or Japan, and a lot faster than it would take to fly.
Right.
I wouldn't say significantly faster, but it's definitely noticeable, and it would use a lot less fuel than an airplane.
Well, and one of the things they said was that part of the hassle of air travel is the takeoff, the landing process, the airport process,
the boarding. Yeah, just to get on the plane, going through all the security, getting your luggage taken from you and placed in the plane underneath you.
Yeah. So and at least one of the designers said they wanted to make it where you could just have your luggage next to you in the car, and so you're the one unloading and loading yourself. Obviously they'd probably still scan it and stuff, but they'd
have to figure out a better way if they're going that fast. I don't want luggage just flying around the car like
it's a pressurized car. It's not like it's just like it's about the same as an airplane.
Yeah, it's true. I don't think it'll be like one of those things where it just accelerates like a rocket. It's probably going to slowly accelerate.
It'll slowly pick up.
Yeah. You probably wouldn't even notice, honestly.
It's not going to be like Space Mountain at Disney World where you're just like...
But I just want to ride on one of these things. If the tube's even semi-transparent and you can see your surroundings, that would be amazing to see the ground pass before your eyes at that speed. Because usually when you're in an airplane, you can barely tell how fast you're going because you're so high up.
You're not going to see anything because you're going to be in an enclosed tube.
I'm saying
like the outer tube?
If the outer tube's transparent and you have windows in the car, that would be amazing. I would ride on that just for the views.
I don't know how much you would see, but
because you'd be going so fast.
Yeah,
that's true.
I also don't know if they would put windows in the tube.
So you think they'd put like artificial windows in the tube just so that way you don't feel like you're like enclosed in a...
Maybe they may put like electronic screens that look like windows or something.
I mean, that would be smart because if not, then you'll feel cramped and stuck in like some tube that's... Who would want that feeling? Because in an airplane, at least you have the windows to look out and it makes you feel comfortable a little bit.
I don't hate enclosed spaces, so it wouldn't bother me. But some people would freak out.
So yeah, okay. So yeah, we covered a few ways of why we would need this Hyperloop system, and it could be coming 2020, 2021. Keep your eyes open.
Blink in between there, but keep your eyes open.
Yeah. You don't want to keep your eyes open permanently because your eyes would dry out, and that would be terrible.
You'll go blind.
You'll go blind. Let us know how you enjoyed this episode, and you can find us at The Future Jam on Twitter. You can find Andrew. Where can you find Andrew at?
I'm hidden.
Andrew is not available at all on the internet.
You can contact, like Jared says, you can contact Mike if you want to contact me.
Yeah, nobody wants to be known on this podcast.
Actually, you know what? I'm just going to start a new Twitter handle called Andrew Redacted.
You should. I will follow that, and you'll still not use it, just like you don't use your current Twitter handle.
That's true.